Hey everyone, it's Paul from One Cast, One Fish, and today we're going to be discussing how to determine a hard or soft bottom on your Garmin Striker fish finder. I would say that one of the top 3 questions that I get about the Garmin Striker fish finder, or any fish finder for that matter, is how do you determine whether the bottom is a hard bottom or a soft bottom? Well, I have great news for you because the Garmin Striker fish finder can definitely help you figure out the bottom composition. And in a few moments, I'm going to show you how. But first, I need you to hit that subscribe button.
First, we need to understand how our sonar works and the role that'll play in helping us determine bottom hardness. Our transducer is responsible for sending sound waves through the water, and when those waves return, the fish finder displays that data on our 2D sonar screen. The fish finder uses the timing between sending and receiving those sound waves back to determine what and where you see returns on your sonar screen. Now, one thing you may not realize is that those sound waves didn't just disappear when they returned back to the transducer. They actually end up being reflected off the bottom of the boat or the water surface and sent back down, simply to be returned again. And the fish finder is smart enough to notice that these sound waves are now weaker and took longer to return. And this is what you may have heard being called a second bottom on your sonar screen. And this is going to play an important role in determining bottom hardness. Since our sonar is using sound waves to paint a picture of what's going on below our boat, I want you to think about this for a second when determining a hard or soft bottom. We know that stronger returns tend to come back as a brighter, stronger color. And in this case, with our classic blue color scheme, these would be red. And as our return weakens, you'll see more yellow and green. But did you know that the strength of those bottom returns correlates to the density of the bottom substrate that the sonar is bouncing back off of? Think about this. If you're standing in a room and you yell at a wall, the sound is going to bounce back at almost the same volume as the original sound. Now do the same thing, but yell into a soft object like a pillow. You'll notice that the sound is drastically lower. This same concept holds true for hard and soft bottoms, as hard bottoms will return the sound waves back faster and harder as opposed to the softer bottoms, which tend to absorb more of our sonar sound wave. Due to this difference in density, harder bottoms tend to show as a thicker, stronger, and brighter bottom return, while softer bottoms tend to show as a thinner and softer return.
The next thing we need to do is get our fish finder set up so we can properly identify the bottom composition. And one thing to note is that our settings for finding our bottom composition are going to be a little bit different than our settings when we're looking for fish.
Remember earlier our discussion about that second bottom? Well, with our fish finder's depth set to auto, it'll be adjusting and tracking the bottom to within a few feet. This makes it nearly impossible to see that second, or even in some cases a third bottom echo return. So, for our purpose of determining bottom composition, we're going to want to run our depth in manual. And it needs to be set at least 2 or even 3 times our current depth.
Now we're ready to start learning and looking at bottom composition. We're going to be looking at various screenshots from my fish finders, as well as some others across the internet.
Here's a great example to start with that shows a very stark contrast between a soft bottom on the left and a hard bottom on the right. Notice on the left, the softer bottom has a very thin line for our strongest return. And you can also see more yellows and green, indicating weaker returns. Also take note that you have more voids and open space, indicating that our sound waves are being absorbed more instead of bouncing back and forth. In contrast, the hard bottom on the right side has a thick line from our stronger returns. And you can even see the presence of 3 bottoms showing on the screen, indicating that our sonar sound waves are bouncing back and forth easier due to the harder bottom. Also notice how the harder bottom lacks those open voids that are present on the softer bottom. Again, this is due to the hard bottom's ability to reflect our sound waves rather than absorb them. Here's another great example that shows a large contrast to help us understand and identify hard or soft bottoms. Again, you can see the hard bottom areas have a thicker, stronger return line and are relatively solid, while the softer bottom area has a weaker return and shows voids as the sonar signal is absorbed more.
These 2 examples we just looked at provide a very stark difference between bottom compositions and are great for learning the basic concepts of what you should be looking for. However, in most situations that you encounter, the differences won't be quite as stark and easy to identify, especially if you're dealing with a mixed bottom. So the important thing to keep in mind is that the difference between hard and soft bottoms may not always be as obvious as what we just looked at.
Next is a screenshot from my Garmin 106 Ultra. You can see on the left of the screen we have what appears to be a rock formation, followed by some standing timber on the right. On the left we can see that the hard bottom formed by the rocks is very well defined, even in our second bottom of our sonar return. Then as we look to the right, you'll see our strong return line thins out a little bit, and with more soft return colors underneath. And it even has some voids that you can see have started to develop. Now looking at this image, I can tell you that the left part of the screen is extremely hard bottom, which we can verify with our clear view. I can also assume that the right side of the screen is a softer bottom. But since I can see a bit of a harder return in my second bottom on the right hand side of the screen, I still feel that there may be some aspects of a hard bottom present, like maybe some gravel or shell mixed in. Now we're looking at an image from our Garmin Striker 4 Vivid. As you can see, our depth range is manually set at 3 times our actual depth, which is helping us see that second and even what looks like it's going to become a third bottom on our sonar screen. Now I want you to look at this sonar image and use what you've learned so far to determine if this area is a hard or soft bottom, or even possibly something in between. I would love for you to comment down below in the comments section with your interpretation of this sonar image, and you'll see that in many instances, sonar interpretation can be varied from individual to individual. And by discussing it, we can all learn something from each other.
Identifying a hard and soft bottom isn't all that hard on your sonar once you have a good base of knowledge and an understanding of how to set up your sonar to your advantage. As always, I hope you found this video extremely helpful and informative, and if you have any questions, feel free to ask down in the comments section below. And we'll see you next time on the water.